neighborhood. Look at the conflicts around you.
Kenya is actually being used for negotiation.
Exactly. Yeah. So when I was here 20 years ago, I also covered at this time, I think the 14th or 15th Somalia Peace Conference, but also the negotiations with regard to Sudan towards the comprehensive peace agreement, which then led to independence of Southern Sudan. And Kenya, General Zumbeyo at this time played a very, very instrumental role. I would even say without Kenya, we wouldn't have had this agreement at the end. So this shows this very important role. I would also say on the continental level, what you're doing for the continental free trade area, for climate and energy, and raising Africa's voice in this very important discussion. What you do also to hold up the international global order, 2 years in the Security Council, 21-22, where your representative in New York delivered very clear statements on Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, which was very, very important for us in Germany to hear this voice of the South, Kenya, to be on our side and to be with us in defending the international order and also in criticizing what is happening and what is done by Russia.
All right. Safe to say we have a strong ally.
Absolutely. And to see, Ambassador, when you look at Kenya generally, the political stability that we enjoy, I mean, we have grown. I mean, we are celebrating almost 60 years of independence and still counting. And we are also celebrating 60 years of friendship with Germany. What's that really mean to you?
Oh, for me personally, of course, it means a lot because I'm the second time here. But I think it shows also that we have gone a long way together. Germany was the first country to recognize the independence of Kenya on the 12th of December, 1963. That's why our number plate starts with one CD, and we are very proud of this.
Did not know that.
Yes, and I think also that we have gone a long way from a sort of traditional development cooperation relationship on a political and economic relationship where we defend and pursue joint interests. Kenya is not longer, as I said, the development country where you come with money and try to build up infrastructure. No, you can invest here. You can make good business also here. You find bright people here that you can invite to work in Germany. You can also have Kenyan investments in Germany. When President Ruto was in Germany only 6 weeks ago, he had a lot of Kenyan businessmen and women in his delegation, because there's also an interest in agricultural products, for example, in the European market. So I think we are not that we are leaving behind this development cooperation that will still play a very important role, but we are evolving more into a really political partnership.
I like that. So, Ambassador Groth, tell me this, because now that we have the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, is coming in today.
Today, exactly.
Today, right?
Sorry.
So, this is going to be his first visit to Kenya. And there must be like a lot of expectations when it comes to the long relationship, the very healthy relationship that we've had over the last 6 decades. What are some of the expectations when it comes to his visit? Because there are things that we are definitely looking forward to. That the president mentioned it. We'll actually play you a clip of that in just a little while. But what are some of your expectations, or even on his behalf? What are some of the expectations that you are thinking of?
I think that is really the expectation is to visit a friend, to visit a good friend. And it's not the first time, by the way, of course, that he meets President Ruto. They met already in September in New York at the margins of the UN General Assembly Week. They met in Sharm el-Sheikh during the COP27, and they witnessed the signing of the new climate and development partnership between Kenya and Germany. And they met 6 weeks ago, of course, for a long dialogue. First, for eyes only, so only the two of them, but then also with delegations. And now it's the fourth time that they have a direct and intense encounter. And there you see also the intensity of the dialogue between the two number ones, if I may say so. And I think this is very important, but it shows the mutual interest and also mutual sympathy that they share with each other. And the expectations is to build on what we have and to develop further. So where can we go? Where can we go deeper? Where can we develop new initiatives? What is Kenya preparing, for example, in the context of the African Climate Summit that President Ruto wants to convene in September? Is there a role for Germany to support? What is with the extension of the geothermal electricity production that you have here in Kenya, which is so amazing, with 94% green energy in your energy basket and going to 100% renewables by 2030? Is there anything that Germany can provide, probably on top to what we are already doing? Is there anything that we can do to support German language training, also to support the TVET system in Kenya? We have dual vocational training system in Germany that is relatively successful. Can we use elements of this system to help also the Kenyan youth? All these things, peace and security. Sudan will play a very important role. In fact, Chancellor Scholz is coming from Addis Ababa. He has 1 day of meetings today there with the African Union, but also with the Ethiopian government, and this will play a very important role also with regard to the importance that President Ruto attaches to this crisis.
All right. So just in case you're joining us, you are actually watching KBC Channel 1 in collaboration with the English service with my colleague Nick Ndeda. And of course, we are privileged to have the ambassador of Germany to Kenya, who is here with us in studio, Groth himself. He said that this is not the first time that he's coming to Kenya.
No, he's been here before, has seen a lot of changes. I'm curious as to what some of your favorite things about Kenya should be. Aside from, I mean, we all love the wildlife. We love the flora and the fauna. It's amazing. We know it's one of a kind. However, what about delicacies? What about landmarks? Do you have any particular that are your favorites?
You know, what I really like is two things for me personally. One is the musical scene. I'm very much into jazz music. And I met some friends here with whom I already played 20 years ago. So we resumed playing from time to time, also for friends and colleagues, and sometimes also more sort of undercover in Mombasa. I'm then not there as a German ambassador, but just as a German piano player. And so this is a lot of fun. And the other thing that I really appreciate is the climate and that you can do so much sports. I mean, in Germany, for example, going swimming outside, you can do it from May to September probably, but then it gets a bit too cold. Here you can do it more or less all year through. You can. I restarted to play tennis with a fantastic tennis trainer from Rwanda. It makes so much fun. We have two sons. One of them is playing basketball. The other one is also playing tennis. So there's a lot of opportunities. I also we like traveling a lot. You know, there are, I think, in the expat communities, two families, two clans. There's the wildlife clan and the coast clan. I'm probably more in the coast clan. I like the coast very much. I also like the wildlife, but I really like the special ambience around Mombasa, in Lamu, in Watamu, also South Coast, because I think there is such an interesting convergence of different cultures. The food is so delicious, the seafood, but also the vegetables, the fruits. The people are so friendly everywhere in Kenya, but I think especially in the coastal area also so curious. So I love it very much.
We have that in common. I also love the coast too.
This raises a very big question: that how many times have you visited Germany?
Oh, wow. Wow.
How many times have you visited Germany?
We can work on this.
We can work on
that.
Okay. Ambassador, you talked about our climate. You've talked about food and, you know, the issue, the global problem that you're facing. And you know for sure that when the head of government will be here, one of the issues that he'll be tackling probably is because of the issue of climate change. COP27 really talked about the gas emission. Kenya is on the forefront in getting the green energy moving forward. What's Germany trying to do to help Kenya to achieve that?
You know, I told you about the climate and development partnership that was signed in Sharm el-Sheikh last year. That is putting an emphasis really on the climate and energy file in the bilateral cooperation. So what are we doing? What are we going to invest in? First, we want to help Kenya and support Kenya in its ambitious goal to go 100% renewables by 2030. I think it is so important to show also the world that you can combine sustainable economic growth with a responsible energy production system. And Kenya, and I would even say Africa, has this unique chance, because what is a disadvantage for you not being industrialized so far can be an advantage in future, because you can industrialize in a sustainable and green way. And we want to support you in this. Second point, which is very important, is to extend the grid. One challenge that you face when you have a lot of renewables energies is that you need a very, very robust and stable grid system that transports the energy. And there are some investments still needed in Kenya, and we want to support you in this. We have German technology and we have some resources, so this will be a second. And the third will be green hydrogen. Hydrogen is seen by many researchers and investors as the way to go globally if we want to really work on our global emission path. And it's the only way also to, again, industrialize in a sustainable manner. And for Kenya, I think there are two chances in green hydrogen. First is the production of fertilizer. Agriculture plays a very, very important role in this country, and not only in Kenya, but also in your neighboring countries. And green hydrogen is a very important basis to produce green fertilizer. And the second thing is to use green hydrogen as an energy source and an input source for industrial production itself. For cement, for steel, for glass, all these high energy intensity production processes that you need also to develop a country, to develop your country, but not the fossil way, but the post-fossil way. And you have the big advantage that you have a green input energy to produce this hydrogen. That's not everywhere the case. Germany is very engaged, for example, in Namibia, also in the green hydrogen field, and there we will help to construct offshore wind parks to produce the energy for producing the green hydrogen. But here I think we can build with you together on the infrastructure that you have, for example, in Olkaria, but also in other places in your country, and really set up a green hydrogen infrastructure, and we want you to support.
And so far, what's the progress on a scale of 1 to 100? Where are we in terms of the progress and the collaboration to achieve all this?
You know, to be honest, I think Kenya is not only in marathon a world champion, but also in green energy. You are the Eliud Kipchoge worldwide in green energy.
Green energy.
Yes. You're running long. You're running long. You're running strong. You are at 92%. Germany is around 45 to 47%. It's always depending a little bit on the sun and the wind. We want to go to 80% by 2030, which is not a long time. It's 6.5 years to double it. Basically, is really ambitious. You are at 92, so it might also be difficult to cover these last 8%. But I think the natural conditions, the geographical conditions, the geological conditions that you have, are very conducive. So I would say you have gone very far already, and the world has a model in your country.
We really are grateful for the vegetation, for the geological situation that we have, especially in Kenya, because even when it comes to carbon, with all the trees we have, it's actually been helping a lot in combating issues with climate change. I'd like us to talk about the opportunities that are now being presented to Kenya as a result of the collaboration between Germany and Kenya. Now that the Chancellor Olaf is going to be coming in, and President William Ruto said that he was going to sign. I was going to witness the signing of the bilateral agreement. So we want to play you a clip of it was just some kind words the president had for the good news that the president had for Kenyans. This
on.
Yeah.
And we will go deeper. So I can tell you what the two heads of state and government might discuss, but it will be a very important point, I think, in the bilateral negotiations.
That's called skill transfer. But then, what are these job opportunities available?
Yeah. What or when?
Job opportunities.
Yeah. What jobs specifically?
I see. Okay. It's a wide range. We have already a very good cooperation, for example, in the field of health, in the field of logistics, in the field of hospitality. So there are quite a number of Kenyans that work in German hotels, on German ships, in German restaurants. But we need it everywhere. I visited, for example, a TVET institution that educated young Kenyans in setting up solar modules on roofs. So you learn welding, you learn the electronic background, and if you, like a country as ours, want to go from 47 to 80% in 6.5 years, you need also the people. Who construct the solar modules on the roofs of the people that construct the wind turbines onshore and offshore. And what I've seen so far, and I visited quite a number of TVET institutions and higher education institutions, is that you have such an ambitious, well-educated and hungry young generation that is also ready to move on. That I think that's really a win-win situation that we can create in the next weeks and months. We are in the process in Germany of reforming our immigration law in order to facilitate the immigration of skilled labor. And my personal aim, and I think also the political aim in Berlin, is to make Kenya one of the key partners in this endeavor.
Will that mean it'll be much easier? Not like very easy, but it'll be much easier for someone to gain access into Germany, because like even recently, US, for example, their visa prices for application of visas have already just gone up, and with how the economy is set up currently all over the world, are we going to see a situation where it'll even be harder, or will this make it easier for someone who is because it's skilled labor we're talking about here. So it should be you should make it as facilitable as possible for that person to go from here, get into Germany, get into the job market, and be able to get us a decent job, live with dignity, because also we wouldn't want a situation where someone's leaving Kenya, going overseas, everyone is excited, they're going to Germany, and then they're having trouble getting accommodation.
Yes.
It's a struggle keeping up with papers and your employers and whatnot. So are you guys working to make sure that those boxes are checked before even this skilled laborer from Kenya applies?
Yeah, that's exactly, Nick. That's exactly the task that we have ahead of us, and I think it affects the German side at least as much as the Kenyan side. So we have to work on the whole process from the first contact at the embassy of a skilled young woman or man who wants to go to Germany, up to where he lands in Frankfurt or Berlin and has his first day in with his new employer. I think this is really, it is a big task. It also demands a mental change in Germany, and also for us as an embassy and as a visa section, as you say. We are now there to facilitate and not to filter or not to check. We have to look for the right people. We have to check the qualifications also. We have to check the language skills. It's not only us that will do this. We have Goethe Institute, we have DAAD, we have probably external service providers who will help us with this. But it is a whole new area, and bear with us. I don't think that from the very beginning everything will run extremely smoothly. It will be a process, but we will do it together. We already had some experiences with partnerships with the Philippines, for example. We are building up another one with Ghana, and my aim is to do it in a similar way here in Kenya. You asked about will it be easier or harder to migrate to Germany. It will definitely become easier because we will develop a so-called opportunity card where you can gain credit points by certain qualifications, like language skills, like skills in a profession that is in high demand in Germany, or by your general level of professionalism. And with this opportunity card, you can then facilitate the whole visa process.
Yeah. All right.
Just one curious question, and I don't like playing devil's advocate. I just like seeing the world for what it is. Okay, and you mentioned that, you know what, you'll make it, especially if it's a skilled laborer, it'll be a little bit easier to get in. Now, we cannot ignore the fact that there are still terrorist threats that happen all around the world, and history has taught us that some of the terrorists who have been apprehended over the years, they got in through, you know, the basic level. They were looking for people to do construction in this country, and they got in, and then they started doing all this other manner of ill things. So you also have to put that in. Is that something that you're factoring in? Major. I'm not saying that we're a nation of terrorists, you understand. Yes. What I mean is there will always be people within good people who are trying
in essence, how will you filter that?
How will you exactly?
Yes.
Yeah, still, of course, we have mechanisms right now that try to look into that if a visa application is processed. But of course, we have to keep it on the watch, and it gets a bigger task even if the numbers become bigger. That's for sure. So I share your observation, but that should not hinder us, you know, to go this way. Also in the interest of the Kenyan youth, but also, I say this very clearly, in the economic interest of Germany. So that's why I call this a win-win situation. You have 800,000 to 1 million young people every year that push into the labor market, and you know about the relevance of the informal sector in this country. 85% are working in the informal sectors. So we can tap into this reservoir and work together to bring at least a few of these good people to Germany, and not necessarily forever. Because there's also, of course, the challenge of a brain drain. It cannot be your interest. I don't know if you have six doctors that are specialized in heart surgery to get 3 of them to Germany, and then you rest with 4. That's not okay. So, but you have sectors in the economy where there's an abundance of labor supply. And then we can work also on concepts of circular migration. So your people come to Germany for 10, 15, 20 years, but then they come back, and the human capital, the knowledge, the experience that they have, also the language skills, the cultural skills, they can bring back here to Kenya.
All right. Okay. I think at this particular point, let's take a break. And we come back. I want us to talk about the issue of food security in the country. And of course, do you have a Kenyan name yet?
A Kenyan name?
Yes, we'll get back to that. I've been given a Kenyan name. Okay. If not, we'll give you one.
Okay, thank you.
Right when we come back. Of course, you're watching KBC Channel 1 in collaboration with
KBC English
Service. We're taking a break, and we come back. We're still having that discussion. A very, very beautiful debate here with the Ambassador of Germany to Kenya, Sebastian Groth. We'll be right back after this. Stay with us. All right, and welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is KBC Channel 1. Good morning, Kenya. And of course, in our radio studios, this is English service with my colleague Nick Ndeda. And in studio, we are privileged to have an amazing discussion with the German ambassador to Kenya, Sebastian Groth, talking to us matters economy, matters development, matters bilateral collaboration between Kenya and Germany, and of course what we should be expecting moving forward. Nick, we talked about so many things, but hey, first things first, food.
We must talk about food.
We must talk about food. Without food, no energy to talk about all these things.
Oh, wow. I like that segue. Yes, so, Ambassador, when it comes, because Kenya is a big exporter of, when it comes to tea, coffee, we've always been at the forefront of agriculture. And the issue of food security has become very dire, given the fact that we have now drought situations. There is a possible El Nino. And Kenya is one of the 20 countries that, unfortunately, is is on the path to experiencing the effects of El Nino. And how does Germany come in when it comes to helping this country maintain its food security? Also, mainly because it's one of the biggest exporters that we have.
Yeah, I think you're touching a very, very important point. Agriculture employs about more than a half, I think, of the population. It's 25% of your GDP. Every Wananchi who probably works in Nairobi has still a shamba somewhere up country for himself, but also for a little bit of income generation. And what we've seen in the last years with 5 or 6 rainy seasons basically not happening was and still is a big challenge. And I would say for some regions even a catastrophe, a human catastrophe, an economic catastrophe. And it's also a bit unfair because Africa is putting out 3% of global emissions, but is bearing the bulk of the economic and climate costs. So I think we have not only a political, but we have also a moral obligation to support you in this difficult phase. And Germany was and is the second biggest contributor in humanitarian aid worldwide after the US. And what we did after it became clear that the situation worsened in the second half of last year is stepping up significantly our engagement, not only in Kenya, but in the whole East African region. So the bulk of our contributions went through the WFP, World Food Program, and they distributed goods and food and sanitation in the region. As I said, not only Kenya, it was also Somalia, Ethiopia, Southern Sudan, and partly Tanzania. But Kenya was a very important and still is a very important recipient. I think humanitarian aid is only one part of the answer. Yeah. What we really need to work on is to make agriculture more resilient, to make irrigation systems more stable, to also work on crops that are more resilient. Also probably reintroduce older crops that you used to grow, like sorghum and others that somehow were pushed out of the market but are coming back now. And last point that I would like to make is it's not a seasonal challenge that will go away. It is a structural challenge. It affects 10, 12, 15 counties in the other region of this country that will be with this problem for the next decades. So what we really have to look at is how do we help these communities to adapt and to develop a lifestyle, a livelihood that gives them also a future. We are not there yet. My feeling is that in my talks to the government, this challenge is understood, it's in the focus, and we are ready to support.
All right.
So long-term solution is what you're looking at. Yeah. Curiously, out of curiosity, what's your take then on when it comes to GMOs? As a means of making sure that you stabilize food production in a country where, you know, with climate change happening and everything, good or bad thing, what's your take?
You know, our official policy is to be very cautious also in bringing these organisms into the European market. We are in these questions not longer a national state, but we are a European regulatory area. So it's Brussels, the Commission in Brussels that is doing the laws basically for us. And we have a rather restrictive regulation in this regard. I think that the future will tell which way we go, and I know about the discussions, of course, in this country with regard to corn, to maize, a few months ago. It reflects a little bit the difficult discussion that we also have in Germany with different camps, also with different economic interests, of course. But generally, I would say we are rather cautious on this front.
All right. Ambassador, the president is quite keen on food security in the country, and of course he's been talking about empowering the farmers as one way of just having food security in our country. But then the head of government is coming into the country today. What are we expecting in terms of Germany and Kenya in collaboration to ensure that there's that aspect of collaboration to bring food security, the industries built across the counties, to produce fertilizers and farm inputs? Are we expecting such from the Chancellor once he's here?
Yes, we are not starting from zero. Agriculture is one of the three main pillars of our bilateral cooperation. It's agriculture, it's youth and employment, and it's climate and energy. And agriculture is a field where both GIZ and KfW and also a number of private or church NGOs are engaged in. What are we doing? It starts with infrastructure. So we are trying to construct roads to transport the goods, cooling chains also to transport it. Agro-processing plays a very important role. We have also German companies that have a business interest in helping you there. Exporting, opening the export markets also even more. I mean, I think they are relatively open, but we are also negotiating an interim economic partnership agreement with Kenya to really put it on a solid ground, our bilateral trade. There's also one aspect that is mentioned time and again, and I think it's important. That's making agriculture sexy again. That means make it interesting for the young people. So introducing new technologies, introducing modern tractors, introducing machinery that increases also the productivity of what you are doing. And it's amazing. I'm a big fan of avocado, parachichi. I've seen that.
Very Kenyan of you.
Do you know, Ambassador, a majority of Kenyans do not know parachichi in Kiswahili avocado?
I just learned that right now.
Really? No, come on, Nick. Come on.
I'm not lying.
No, but listen, when I was here 20 years ago, I think there was only this big parachichi that is more looking almost like a madafu, and which is not very aromatic, I would say. Now you have the Hass avocado, the smaller one, the very aromatic, and they are playing an important role in world markets. And I think you achieved this in 8 or 10 years, and that shows the dynamics of the sector also, and the opportunities in the sector that you have, and you can seize them. We have on the global scale a scarcity in good food production, so Kenya has a role to play here, can play a role here. I think the market structures have to be put right, the export structures have to be put right, but you are in a good spot to seize this opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, let's talk about something that is really affecting our country right now. They say that when your neighbor's house is on fire, first of all, run and check what's happening there. Khartoum is under serious threat right now. A majority of Kenyans are actually back, and many nationals are going back to their countries. I don't know what's your take on Khartoum instability, and Kenya is playing that big brother role to bring all the heads together to mediate. What is your take on Khartoum instability, and what is Germany doing also to bring stability in that country?
Yeah, and I think it's a really, really a very concerning situation that we are facing. Sudan is a very, very big country land-wise. It has, I think, 8 neighbors. With most of the neighbors, there are some difficulties, border issues, land issues, ethnic issues. It has a history of coup d'etat internally. It is a history of military rule internally, and we are now in a situation where basically 2 military camps face each other, more or less on an equal footing. They are more or less,
and nobody's not stepping back.
Nobody is stepping back. In the contrary, they are looking, of course, for sponsorship and support from the outside. So there are also a number of stakeholders from the outside that are putting oil in the fire, and it costs a lot of human suffering. I think the humanitarian situation is a very, very big concern to us, as it is to Kenya. But I think also the question of the regional stability is very much in the focus. Eastern Africa, the Horn of Africa, is a relatively volatile, fragile region with a lot of internal conflicts and also, as I said, border issues and transnational also tensions. And the last thing we need is a breakdown scenario. I think in Sudan, in this very volatile region. What are we doing? First of all, in these times of crisis, we try to help as much as we can the German compatriots that live there. So in relatively short time, we built up a sort of air bridge via Jordan, because we have a small Air Force base that we can use in Jordan. And we flew out Germans, but not only Germans, but also nationals from 20 other nationalities from all over the place, from New Zealand to, I don't know, Latin America probably. I don't know exactly, but it was really an international effort. The second thing is what we do is to try to help the political track. Support what Kenya is doing, what IGAD is doing, what the AU is doing, what, of course, the Americans and other important partners are doing, the United Nations. And the third is try to help in this dire situation to alleviate, at least, we will not end it, but alleviate the human suffering. And I think this is also one of the points that the Chancellor and the President will discuss. In a situation of open warfare, is there still a possibility to reach people, to bring them food, to bring them water, to bring them medication, and to help them survive, basically? And I think this is the main challenge right now, and we have to stand together and stop this mess. I think it's really a tragedy.
But is there any direct aid from Germany to Khartoum?
The most of the aid to Khartoum was channeled through the United Nations to the big organizations like World Food Programme, UNHCR and others. And in all these organizations, Germany is the second biggest bilateral contributor. So there was a lot of German resources involved. There are also a lot of German development corporations in the country. But now, of course, they are all out now. They had to cease their operations. There is no safe environment to do this right now. But we are ready to help. We are ready to support, far and foremost, the United Nations family and institutions to re-engage. But they are in a very difficult situation. I think they were there with almost 4,000 people. I think so. I'm not quite sure. But most of them are out. Some of them are still in Port Sudan, which is, at least compared to Khartoum, relatively stable. But it's the last point of entry and exit, so to speak. So they are based there, and I think we have a very important United Nations meeting right now here going on in Nairobi. I know that the President Ruto is very much in contact with UN counterparts on this with regard to the humanitarian aid, and you can be sure that Germany is here supporting with all our means and with all our resources.
Ambassador Groth, I'm curious, do you think and then this is again going back to what history has shown us. I remember back in the wars in Sudan, back in the 90s, and there would be UN missions coming through to help the situation, provide food, provide everything, and then there were all these other atrocities that happened underneath it. Now, do you think it would make more sense if a country like Germany, for example, channels their aid through through the African Union, like you mentioned, like working with IGAD, working with something that's more closer to home than it being a situation of here are these foreigners from this region so far, so detached, and they're just coming here, because that's usually what gives the idea of what else are they here for. So I wanted to pick your thoughts on that.
No, I think what we need is a division of labor also, or in full complementarity, because IGAD and AU are not there normally for development cooperation or humanitarian aid. There we have an established international structure that can react on relatively short notice. Martin Griffith, the head of OCHA, Organization for the Coordination of Humanitarian Aid on the UN level, was here or is here still in Nairobi to look into these opportunities. The head of UNDP, Achim Steiner, toured the region. He was, I think, in Eritrea and other parts of this region here. So you see, there is already a scoping going on what to do. I think IGAD and AU, the two organizations that you mentioned, are more active in the political field. So they are the platforms to negotiate the political corridors, to bring the fighting to an end, and to organize an orderly transition process. One of the most important things I think that we have to look at is, where are the non-military elements in Sudan that we can push forward? What we have seen now is that we put all our eggs in the military basket. We end where we end now. And we had such a wave of democracy and civil society engagement in Sudan, a power that toppled Bashir, a dictator who was there for 30 years. And so what can we do also to strengthen civil society voices in this hopefully soon arriving transition process towards a new Sudan? That is also something that Germany is looking into, because we have quite strong organizations that were active in Sudan for quite a while, that have good networks, but the time has to be ripe, and I think still it's a bit too early.
All right, Ambassador, I'm told you're almost coming to the end of the program, but a few questions here from our viewers and people are listening. Somebody's asking that Germany has been, producing and giving Kenyan scholarships to go and study in that particular country. So what should you expect now that the head of government is coming here? Should you expect more scholarships from the head of government?
We are always open for more scholarships. There is, of course, a budget constraint, but I know from DAAD mainly, which is the German Academic Exchange Service. By the way, President Ruto was one of the beneficiaries with a surplus scholarship here in Kenya when he studied, I think, zoology or botanics, and so DAAD is always looking for good people. They tell me that they have a lot of openings and you can apply. Check their website and fill in the forms. There's also very important European programs, which is called Erasmus Plus. The bulk of the money of Erasmus Plus is going to Africa, and we have wonderful, excellent universities in Europe, not only in Germany. And I can only invite all the young Kenyans to check the websites. One is Erasmus Plus. You Google it, you will find something. And the other is really DAAD, DAAD. You find the opportunities. The other thing that we want to increase and have to increase, I think, is German language skills here in Kenya. So we look into this also with regard to bringing skilled labor to Germany, because of course it helps if you speak German, and then if you apply for a visa, then it's easier to migrate to Germany.
And of course, someone is also asking, how many skilled labor are you looking at? The immediate numbers after the signing of the bilateral agreement between the two heads of government?
No, as I said, we are looking into a deficit of skilled labor of 250,000 people per year, going up to 400,000 in the next years. And then we have to see how many of these vacancies can be filled by good Kenyans. I think now it's a bit too early to give exact numbers, but they will be significant.
Okay. We ask you a question.
I still have that one question about AI that we have to ask.
Go ahead.
Because this is such a crazy thing. Because right now everyone in the world is talking about how AI is artificial intelligence is either a good thing or a bad thing. And then we had recently, I think it was earlier this week, the guy who's considered the godfather of AI, Jeffrey Hinton. He quits Google at 75. Sure, he's old, retirement age. But one of the things he said that stood out, he said that right now artificial intelligence isn't smarter than us, but it has the potential of being. So given the fact that everything we're being pushed to jump into artificial intelligence, chat GPT, this and that, what are your thoughts? Do you think it's going to be something that will end up becoming more of a bane to our existence than something that was meant to make life easier? Because right now everyone has individual thoughts, so I don't know what your thoughts are.
Thank you very much for this question. We had a dinner yesterday, a farewell dinner for my good friend and colleague Jane Marriott at the residence of the US Ambassador, and I had the pleasure to sit next to the Google director for East Africa. And we talked exactly about this story and about the warning of the so-called godfather of AI. And I think it's natural that there are some critical voices now. I think Elon Musk and others also raised their voice, and and warned about the possible negative impacts of all of this. And I think we have to bear this in mind. But what we have to work on the other hand, is a regulatory framework, an international regulatory framework, to see how we use how we make the best use of it. We won't stop it. I think history has shown that we won't stop these sort of innovations, but we have to channel it, and we have to, if possible, control it. And their international collaboration, again, is very, very important. For example, in the climate field, we have this IPCC body that is a scientists body that gives recommendations every few years. And I think we need a similar body in the field of artificial intelligence, a group of the best scientists worldwide together that give recommendations, policy recommendations, regulatory recommendations to keep the demon in the bottle, because of course there is a potential risk, but there are also a lot of benefits for all of us. So probably in 10 years. We are not sitting here physically, but our avatars are talking. Nick and Victor and Sebastian with their computer voices. We don't know.
What's going to be next? Okay. As we come to a close, industrialization is key.
Yeah.
We've seen Germany actually establish certain industries in the Kenya. We have got VW assembly plant in Thika, and so many more. What should we expect now that the head of government is coming here? Some basket full of goodies for us?
I think to be more serious, that one of the key words in the German industry and business world now is diversification. It's one of the hard lessons that we learned from Russia's war against Ukraine, but also with regard to the asymmetries that we feel in the economic exchange with China right now, that we have to widen our perspectives. We have to develop a 360-degree sort of perspective also in economic terms. And here Africa comes into play. Africa is the youngest population, it's the fastest growing population, the middle class is growing, there are a lot of infrastructure needs, and there are a lot of opportunities. And what I feel since I'm here, I arrived on 1st of August last year, is that the interest of German business is definitely growing in all fields. I would mention again climate energy as one, infrastructure, the health sector, but we also, for example, opened, not we, but a shoe producer from a small town, Pirmasens in Germany, opened a factory in Kwale. He's producing shoes for the world market there. And he says, it was a good investment. They are very happy what they have done, and people in Kuala are happy because they have good jobs. So again, it's a win-win situation. So from local production to industry to high tech and also ITC investments, I think we will see a lot more. We have about 120 German companies present here in Kenya, and we are working day and night to increase this number. The Chancellor has a big economic delegation in his plane, and we will have a common joint meeting with Kenyan business representatives, both with the Chancellor and the President Ruto at State House. So you see that exactly this question about investments and joint economic opportunities is playing a very important role.
That's great stuff. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ambassador Groth, for coming through. This has been very eye-opening. We're really looking forward to the collaboration, to making the collaboration between Kenya and Germany even stronger, and sharing ideas, because that's what helps make everything work out so much better. So thank you so much for that.
All right. I asked a question that you've not been given any Kenyan name. Pick one.
That's difficult, you know.
Okay.
I mean, there are so many. I met one Kenyan colleague.
Yes.
And her last name was Fortunate. And this one, it's not very Kenyan, of course. It's English, but I like this very much. And I asked, is this an artist's name, like Prince, the singer, or is it a real? It's a real name.
Right.
I like this very much. But I like the Maasai names with a lot of O's. I think Oloo. You might be from the west.
Good.
No,
there
but
you have it.
Yeah, but
Oloo. Maasai and Oloo.
Exactly. So, but I'm open. So you give me one, please. Yeah.
We'll send you a text.
Okay, you don't have one. Okay.
No, we'll send you on WhatsApp or which kind of a name.
Ask the listeners if they have proposals.
Oh, sure, yes.
They might call it
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you. I know you have a very long day ahead of you now that your boss is coming in town, so you have a long way for a long day ahead of you. But nonetheless, thank you so much for joining us here on KBC Channel 1. Of course, we've been in collaboration with the
KBC English Service.
Yes,
indeed.
An amazing discussion we've had there. All right, that's where we wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us. And if at all you have any question, as you said, just come to our social media platforms and we'll send it to them for your answers. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Victor Lo and
Nick Ndada.
Good morning.